What can you say about a Sizzler date? The surf and turf special was Bob's big thing. I'd asked him about it once and he said, "I do numbers, right? I'm a CPA." Bob always made a point of saying CPA rather than accountant. It seemed to be a differentiation that was important to him. And this is the best deal in town. It reminded me of that movie Ghostbusters and Rick Moranis' character, who was accountant and always told his clients to buy generic aspirin instead of name brands. Bob even looked a little bit like him, the Ghostbuster character, just an older and more tired version. We ate dinner and went back to my house. I slept a little bit between his snoring. Dawn was a long time coming. I did not tell him about my dreams or the lens. Bob never overstays his welcome. I can definitely confirm that. 30 minutes before my alarm was supposed to go off, I was half awake when he got out of bed and had nearly started to doze off again when the alarm went off. Moaning, I heaved myself upright and shut off the alarm. Bob came out of the bathroom and I made a beeline into a sauna. At least I couldn't see what I looked like with the mirror all fogged up. I did my thing and stumbled into the kitchen where Bob was busily making coffee and putting bread in a toaster. I didn't drink coffee often, usually only when I had a migraine, but I had been drinking a lot of coffee lately. I pulled a mug out of the cupboard, grabbed a bag of green tea, filled up the cup with tap water, and put it in the microwave for 2 minutes. "Today is Wednesday, right?" Bob asked. "Yeah, I think so." "Yeah," I said, waiting for the microwave to go off. Too hard a question for me, too early in the morning, without having any caffeine. "I'll be back over the weekend for the annual IMA conference. Why don't we get a hotel room and we can make an event of it?" I mumbled, watching the numbers go slowly down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bing! Hallelujah! I lunged for the microwave and yanked the door open, sloshing the tea inside. "Geez, here, hold on. I forgot how grumpy you are in the morning before you have your fix." Bob grabbed a rag off the dish drain and patted the inside of the microwave, getting most of the overflow, while I removed the cup a little more carefully. I backed up a few steps and sat down at my little trestle table under the kitchen window, considering the idea of being with Bob for 2 whole days in a strange place. Suddenly, I didn't find that so appealing. "Well," I started, trying to buy a little time, "I do have some things I really need to get done here that I can't do from a hotel room." I glanced at Bob to see how that went over. He frowned. "Is there something I can help with? We could get it done fast and then have the rest of the weekend?" He seemed pretty set on the idea of a weekend getaway. I shook my head. "No, I really don't think so. I appreciate the offer, though. Really." I smiled up at him. "I just need to get some stuff done here. Maybe next time?" "Sure," he grunted, dumping his coffee into the sink. "Thanks for dinner. You know I always look forward to seeing you," he added, looking me full in the face. I looked out the window. My little fenced yard looked so bleak and ugly in late winter. The leaves that had looked so pretty as they fell from the maple months ago now lay on the ground, turning various shades of brown and gray. I'd hoped they'd be more compost by this point. "Maybe I'll plant flowers this year," I said, glancing back at Bob. "Sounds nice," he said, bending down to give me a quick peck on the lips. "I'll call you later this week," he called over his shoulder as he opened the door, closing it behind him with a thud. I couldn't help thinking how final that sounded, and noticed how little the thought bothered me. One of my favorite places to go was the zoo. Off of the 288 and about 10 minutes from my place, it had pretty decent habitats for the animals and helpful information, including Dawsons that wandered around asking people, "Can I help you get lost?" I think it was supposed to be funny, but after you've heard the phrase a few dozen times, it starts to lose its luster. Not to mention the fact that you really could get lost there easily. It had more than 50 acres and more than as many exhibits. My favorite part was the aviaries. I could just spend hours wandering through the various habitats. You could go from the quiet, sedate companionship of the songbirds to the high-energy, whirling dervish hummingbirds, to the commanding presence of the macaws, which I especially loved. They just screech and scream, bright colors flashing through the trees. It was really spectacular, so completely and utterly different from my beige house with my beige clothes and my beige life. By the time I finished at the office at 4:57 p.m. Friday, I decided a bit of color and chaos was just what I needed. I clocked out, not worried about leaving 2 minutes early, as I was always in at least 10 minutes before I was supposed to show up. I saw Tony watching me from out of the corner of my eye and waved at him. "Have a good weekend," I called as I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. "Bye, have a good weekend too," Tony called after me. Sandra pointedly looked at her computer screen as I strolled past, looking very industrious as she muttered a humph. I almost laughed out loud. Sandra was always late arriving for work. Always. If she didn't stay after 5 p.m., she'd never get her 40 hours in. Sunday morning dawned clear and cold for a change. After tossing and turning for about an hour, I gave it up and got up. I didn't have a migraine, but thought I deserved some real caffeine, so I made an entire pot of coffee, pulling out the Ethiopian beans I had stashed under the sink in a mason jar behind the old grinder. Something I wouldn't even share with Bob. Tossing a healthy scoop into the grinder, I pushed the on button and listened to the whine change as the beans quickly turned from bean to coarse to fine ground. A couple quick pulses, and they were ready for the French press, the teapot just starting to whistle. As I poured the hot water over the fresh ground beans, it smelled the rich aroma of dark, oily coffee exploding into steam. I wonder if hiding my special coffee from Bob was maybe telling me something else. If I wanted to listen, that is. Sinking down into the couch with a steaming cup of coffee cupped in my hands, swirls of vanilla creamer blending together in a delicious taupe-colored froth, I decided I'd better take a look at the lens today. I had tried not to think about it more than I had this past week, but I knew it was something that was not going away, now that it was here. Sooner or later, I was going to have to decide what to do about it. I finished my first cup of coffee and, feeling really ready and whole for the first time in a long time, I poured a second cup and sat down in front of me, then pulled the bag with the lens out from under the coffee table and sat back down on the couch. I took a deep breath and pulled the lens out of the bag, placing the case on my lap. The lid came off smoothly in my hands with its usual quiet whisper, and I sat the lid down beside me on the couch. This time when I looked at the lens, it seemed to be clearer in my vision, with a visible break in the wood cylinder about a third of the way along the length where the black frame holding the slides was located. Carefully, I lifted the lens out of its case for the first time. It felt nearly weightless in my hands, but seemed well balanced as I tilted it back and forth. I looked through the black tourmaline thry-piece, as she had called it, but again, I could see nothing through that end, but just the crystal quartz point in the hollow of the black tourmaline center. When I lifted the lens and pointed it towards the window, I could see light coming through the crystal, so I turned it around to look more carefully at the larger end. It just looked the same. I could see there was some kind of lens at that end, but I couldn't see anything through it.